I am no sheikh, but I don't see a reason why this would be haram. The fact that the price
Yeah,
goes up and down is not a problem with Bitcoin. It's a problem with the fiat monetary system, and it
yeah.
causes the price of
No, I
everything
mean,
to go up and down.
I think the price volatility is not the issue. Uh, subject to freedom of contract, of course, but per se, price volatility is not the issue. There were people who went to the Prophet peace be upon him and asked him to regulate the price of wheat during a famine, and he refused because he knew that you have to address the cause of the problem, not the results of it.
So, Sheikh Tarek, if you're watching this, let me know if I'm right about this one. Now, we start seeing a list of reasons, or I guess you could say defenses of Bitcoin, almost as if Sheikh Tarek is inviting Saifudeen to Bitcoin, as if he's trying to orange pill him. So he answers that the volatility isn't an issue. And he mentioned an example of volatility of certain prices, things at the time, Mr. Allah, and said not to basically he refused to regulate the thing because of what he perceives, or what the Sheikh said is that he understood that he wants to address the root cause of the volatility or the price increase as opposed to just fix it externally. Now, I object to that point there. I'll get back to that in a minute. But point here is that we will see from here a list of defenses for Bitcoin. And this leads me to believe that Sheikh Tarek has done some research. He's looked into the issue a bit more. He is, I guess, open to the idea that Bitcoin is money, but still he's in the category of category number 2. He doesn't really want to come out and say something that opposes what scholars have said without a scholar first saying it first. I think that's more the area is saying, because he does bring the arguments, but he also even refutes the arguments. So he actually refuted the volatility argument. And as you've seen in my previous video, the volatility argument is one of the major arguments against Bitcoin by many of the scholars, or if not all of the scholars, who are objective to Bitcoin. Those who say Bitcoin is haram, the first and last reason is why they say it is because it's volatile. And he says here, volatility is not an issue. So, yeah. But one issue I objected is that he mentioned about the hadith where the Sahaba said, Sa'id lana, fix the prices for us, the price went up. And he said that the reason behind it was because he wants to address the root cause as opposed to the symptom. Now, that's speculation. And I think that's speculation in the face of Nas, speculation in the face of the text. The hadith actually stipulated the reason why. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I don't want to meet Allah yawm al-qiyamah and have anyone against me a madhlama, a claim of oppression. Meaning, if the Messenger of Allah was to fix the price to something, there will be oppression. Meaning that someone will be forced to sell their item at a discount, or someone will be forced to buy something above its market value. Meaning that dictating the price, by its very nature, means oppression. Because to dictate the price means to force someone to engage in a transaction they're not happy with. And every transaction, the basis of a transaction is taradi. Both parties are happy. So I think that is the basis for the prohibition. Not that it was root cause, not root cause, because it is literally what it is. So if the government says minimum wages is £10, that's basically saying to any employer who wants to employ someone for a job that doesn't deserve as much as £10 an hour, you must pay them more than what they deserve. You must pay them what you are not happy to pay them, otherwise we'll beat you or we will inflict violence onto you. That's why it's oppression. And the markets are open, Islamically speaking. The markets are there as it's based upon taradi, when both parties are happy. So this is an example of we find in the Middle East when people say, oh, these Arabs employed these Asians for super cheap, for pennies. Well, those pennies are worth the hours that they spend. Otherwise, they wouldn't do that job. Listen carefully. I know some people might be upset with what I have to say, but the reality is those pennies are pounds to them back home. Otherwise, they wouldn't go through so much hardship to do so. Many of these people who get this really low wages, send it back home and build all sorts of things, houses, put the kids through school, because it's worth a lot to them and they are willing to pay or work for that value. An employer can only employ someone if they're happy to take that money. But if I stipulate minimum wage, I am now forcing someone to pay something that they are not happy to pay. Hence the tadhalum, as in the oppression. But yeah, point is, he's trying to orange pill Saifudeen now.
Really, one has to focus on the narrow legal issues first. And I think intellectual property rights are widely accepted now. I think there are very few serious scholars, in fact, none that I know, who don't accept patents, for example, intellectual property rights as a genuine form of asset. And indeed, I don't think them, in modernity with inventions and designs, and so you need patents. And these things exist digitally. There isn't a physical thing to them, really. So that kind of right, I think, is accepted. Now,
so just very quickly, he's essentially saying that he's acknowledged that no one really rejects the idea that something digital or information-based can't be owned. So he's defending it. As a Bitcoin is something that can be owned, even as digital. So he's accepting that premise that, yeah, things can be owned, although they're not physical. And he gives an example of intellectual property. So yeah, go for it, man, Tarek.
There is another issue that we need to look at, and the objectives that we show you, of course, are relevant here, because we may still make a judgment that says that Bitcoin is actually not fulfilling the requirements of Islamic law, but it is actually a lot better than the thing we're using at the moment, which is the fiat money system, right? So there is this lesser of two evils argument, and I kind of put that into the objectives category, when we look at reasons for.
And again, another argument, this is the what if, or even walau, the even if argument. You have that a lot sometimes in the books of fiqh when they discuss issues. They say, even if X, Y, Z happens, it's still valid, basically. So he's saying here, he's preempting an objection or a future prohibition. Even if we were to find that Bitcoin is actually not money, or is even haram to use, it could actually be the lesser harm than riba. So he's made 3 cases for Bitcoin already. Yeah. So that's something very promising. But let's continue first before we get too happy.
Actually, let me say that the basis of Islamic law is a prohibitions-based law. We don't look to see whether something's permissible. We look to see whether something's prohibited. So the rules list what is prohibited, right? And then if we don't see any of these prohibitions being relevant to a particular issue, then it's permitted by default.
Yeah.
So we have to look at it on that basis.
And we have another evidence here from Shaykh Tarek. And this is the basis of all discussion about Bitcoin. I've mentioned in my series dealing with the halalness of Bitcoin. The very first premise I established is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, where he says, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. He is the one who created for you everything in the earth in totality for you. And the ulama have taken this as a basis that things in this dunya, in this world, are halal by default, unless we have evidence to suggest otherwise. So therefore, Bitcoin, we don't actually ask, is Bitcoin halal? That's actually the wrong question from the basis of the Sharia. The correct question is what give me the evidence that it is haram? So the onus is not upon us, the Bitcoiners, to prove that Bitcoin is halal. It's upon the other to say or give evidence that Bitcoin is haram. Shaykh Tarek is bringing the smack down, the adillah. Yeah, Shaykh Tarek.
But having said that, then there is this fiat money system which is not transparent, where your money can be frozen at any time, where someone can press a button, in a central bank somewhere, and suddenly you've got nothing. And on that basis, it would seem that Bitcoin is better.
You see, like I said, he's bringing all the reasons why Bitcoin has strong standing and has a reason to be halal. He's actually highlighting the failings of the fiat system. That fiat is fundamentally oppressive. They have power over us. They can sanction us and block us from our monies. Shaykh Tarek, mashallah, mashallah.